All right. It's Thursday night TV review for April 24th, 2008 on with EO Chat. Just got done watching Smallville and Scrubs. Smallville, I do have to admit, definitely not my favorite episode this season. They put in some weird James Bond references in the show, and I mean, not that that's a huge fault, but I don't know, they put Jimmy in a tuxedo, and he was working with the government to try and bring Chloe in, because they had her on the terrorist list because she's been hacking into some government systems. Not that she hasn't done it before, but this time she's doing it to try and get in satellite fixes and see if they can get a hold of the energy signatures left behind by Brainiac and Kara, who flew off the rooftop of the Daily Planet a few episodes ago, and Clark and Chloe have been trying to find out how to get to them, especially since Lana was put in some sort of trance by Brainiac, where she, pupils completely dilated, she can't see, she's completely unresponsive. So anyway, they're trying to track them down, and the government recruits Jimmy to try and bring Chloe down. Just a lot of weird things going on with that. The government recruiting a young guy in his 20s to try and bring down his girlfriend, giving him all these gadgets and everything, and all of a sudden Jimmy's able to covertly and quietly crawl through air ducts, and not that they don't do things like that on Smallville before. I mean, come on. It's the world of Superman. It's, mythical and fantasy and things like that. But, I don't know, it was a weird air. And they had some scene in a club during this whole mission thing where Chloe and Jimmy did this weird tango, kind of reminiscent to how James Bond would dance with a woman in the movies. It was very strange. But there were some interesting aspects of tonight, though. The last couple of minutes, you find out that, first, before I get to that, Lex did use the Veritas keys and opened the box, and found in there this weird sort of compass clock thing that when you turn the dials just right, the symbols on the markings on the clock turn into the Veritas symbol, and which we all know was the club that Dr. Swan, Lionel Luthor, Oliver Queen were involved in, that had to do with the Traveler, which, as we all figure out from the show, is Clark traveling from Krypton. Anyway, this thing's supposed to somehow, I guess, from what they say, control Clark. Very interested to find out how that happens. I'm wondering how this all fits in, and now that Lex has his hands on it, how that all works. Now, obviously, for those of you who've seen it, realize that the previews last week showed Lex standing in front of the Fortress of Solitude. Didn't happen in this episode. I'm betting it's going to happen in the season finale, which is entitled Arctic. So that's probably going to happen then. But the coolest thing about this episode was you find out what Brainiac's plan is. He and Kara apparently flew through a wormhole in space Chloe found on the spy satellite that might possibly be taking them back in time to Krypton, because Clark went to the fortress to try and figure some of this stuff out and received a message from Kara from Krypton saying Brainiac wanted to kill him. Well, they discovered that Brainiac apparently planned to go back through time when Krypton was still intact, because we all know it blew up, and that's how Clark's here on Earth. Jor-El sent him in the rocket here to Earth. And so anyway, that's his plan, go back to Krypton in time and kill Clark as a baby. And it was cool because Chloe made a reference that possibly it's time for Kal-El to go back to Krypton. Does that mean that Clark's actually going to make a journey through time to go see his homeworld? That would be so awesome if they did that. I can't wait for that to happen if that's what actually happens. So, but however, there is something cool I definitely am waiting for next week. There's a storyline that happens that apparently I read about, that Lois and Clark decide to do some undercover work, and Lois talks Clark into a disguise. And, well, I'll show you. I saved the episode and freeze-framed it, so check this out. There it is. Do we see that there? Does that disguise look familiar? Tom Welling with glasses and suit. Does that look a little bit more Clark Kentish? Oh, by the way, this here, what I'm pointing at right there, don't worry about that. Clark Kent is not giving you the big FU with sign language. He was doing one of these as he was walking, and as he brought his hand down, that was the last shot before it faded into black. And it was like the clearest shot of his face, so that's why it looks like he's flipping you off. But anyway, looks cool. He's got the Clark Kent look. So, we'll see where that takes us next week. Watch Scrubs tonight, too. It was a pretty good episode, actually. It had to deal with Kelso, the board finding out that Dr. Kelso, chief of medicine at Sacred Heart, found out he was 65. They were forcing him out because Dr. Reed apparently let it slip through a birthday party she threw, made the board realize that Dr. Kelso was 65, and they're forcing him into retirement. Well, they end up getting a way to rally all the doctors, even Dr. Cox, who does not like Dr. Kelso, into sticking up for Kelso and keeping him at the hospital. Well, one of his biggest things was the fact that he was being forced out and not able to leave on his own terms. Which was awesome, because the minute they told him that he could keep his job, he basically told them to shove it up their ass, took his picture down off the wall, and left. Now, despite all that, Kelso did have a moment with one of the interns that I think it's just somebody they had on the show this time. I don't remember ever seeing him before. But talk to him about his memories of Sacred Heart. Seemed a little bit human, and anybody who's a fan of the show knows that Dr. Kelso, not the most compassionate guy whatsoever. However, it was classic when Ted found out that Kelso was leaving, his assistant there at the hospital, found out that Dr. Kelso was leaving, running naked through the hallways out into the parking lot, and janitor hits him with his van. Ted bites off part of his tongue, his mouth fills with blood, and he passes out. It's classic. But anyway, those are my Thursday night TV views and my little blurbs on those. So I guess that'll do it for today. So everybody out there, depending on when you're watching this, have yourself a good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is a day that you're watching this particular video, and we'll see you later. EO signing off.